these people.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Larry from Morley's Funerals. I welcome you to this memorial service for Rurik Henry. Thank you so much for coming along this afternoon and honouring this special man by being here and supporting the family. Just some housekeeping things. The toilets are down towards the large car park on the left of that. So that's. We also have some water here. We have tissues available. And please, if you didn't sign the COVID register and memoriam book, please do that on your way out. We would appreciate that, and that is a government requirement. So thank you. We will now commence the memorial service for Rurik Henry. Thank you.
Strength and light thou to thee. Sad am I without thee.
As Rurik's mother, I would like to say a few opening words of welcome to all of you in attendance here, whether in person or elsewhere in Australia and across the other side of the world via the live stream. Although Rurik's father and I and Rurik's sisters Rosalani and Rafaela no longer live in Townsville, we felt strongly that we needed to hold a memorial service for our dear, gentle, loving son and brother here at Jezzine. This special place called us to remember Rurik, honour him and celebrate his life. Here, where Rurik's presence is so tangibly materialised in the 4 sculptures he made in collaboration with Aboriginal artists and storytellers. The Brolga with Jeremy George, the crocodile with Jordan Wiles, and the installation of the three crows and the shovel-nosed ray, or Dewey Dewey, who became the stars of the Southern Cross, which are based on stories told to him by Elder Russell Butler Sr. Thank you, Russell. We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this special place, a place imbued with ancestral power, where the old people would gather and where women would stop en route to the special birthing site across the bay. When Rurik first left Townsville, nearly 5 years ago, Bob and I missed him terribly. To comfort ourselves, we used to come here to visit his sculptures and through them connect to him. He had created them in the shed in our old house in West End. And we'd seen the creative process unfold, the very sweat of his body that he had put into these sculptures. To see and to touch his sculptures brought us closer to him then, and we hope that they will continue to do so into the future. Rurik's heart stopped suddenly and unexpectedly in his deepest sleep at his home in Naess-Henry, Norway, just after 1 a.m. on the 1st of June, during the only 2 hours of darkness at that time of year in that part of the world. Rurik's ashes will be buried on the 30th of June, close to where he made his home and family with his wife Erica. So we are holding this memorial service here today, especially for all his family and friends here in Townsville and across Australia and everywhere. It's good to be able to come together in our sorrow, not only to mourn Rurik's death, but to celebrate his life. Many here present, I know, have experienced and suffered the loss of loved ones. There's nothing wrong with us expressing our grief together. Let us mourn together. Let us cry together. Let us hope for the future. Let us heal. Thank you for the shared gift of grief for my son. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for being here today. It's hard to encapsulate Rurik's life and spirit in so few words. As Rurik's sisters, we would like to just share a few fond memories. Born in Adelaide on the 6th of November 1985, Rurik was a peaceful baby. Mum tells us of how, when lying in bed with me to put me to sleep at night, Rurik would put his little head up like a turtle in his cot in our room, and she would say, "Put your head down, go to sleep." And he would do exactly that. He may have been a dream baby, but that's not to say that he didn't go through the cheeky brother stage too. When living in Townsville, he went through a phase of making potions with household chemicals in the style of Roald Dahl's George's Marvellous Medicine with his childhood friend Tom Bainbridge. One day, after a sibling squabble, he decided to upend the contents of one of the concoctions onto my bedroom floor, along with a dead cane toad for good measure. It may have been deserved, I can't quite remember. We had a lovely childhood together, and Ruffy and I have warm memories of playing in the bush at Koa with Rurik and her cousins on holidays, making cubby houses in the dry creek beds from paper bark and sticks, and having many adventures, nurtured by Oma and Opa and all of our aunts and uncles there on the land. It was, and still is, a magical place. Terry Pratchett, one of my favourite authors, who Rurik liked to read also, said of the fantasy genre, "Fantasy is like an exercise bike for the mind. It might not take you anywhere, but it tones up the muscles that can." Rurik always liked the genre. He and his friends dived in during their teenage years with Warhammer, Dungeons and Dragons and computer gaming. Rurik was deft at creating worlds for his friends to play in as Dungeon Master. Mum and Dad remember fondly how our house in Townsville became a gathering place for Rurik's friends. Dad would serve up American-style hot dogs for the hungry gang. But Rurik actually wasn't the biggest book reader until Cyclone Yasi took the power out in Townsville for a week and he couldn't play computer games. But that power outage started him reading fantasy novels and he didn't stop. In recent years, he would listen to audiobooks during his commutes in Oslo. All throughout his life, Rurik made great friends, many of whom are here today. Rurik had such strong friendships, often reinforced by shared hobbies like computer gaming, D&D, Warhammer, the band, Slippery Missile, and art. We are very grateful for the important part that you all played in Rurik's life.
Many of you know Rurik as an accomplished artist. As Mum mentioned earlier, his artworks are why we have chosen this place to meet today. From a young age, Rurik showed talent. I remember when we were children waiting with him in Mum's office, and he would draw on reams of paper. Even as an adult working at university, he decorated Mum's whiteboard with a picture of a Viking, and little did we know he would end up living in the land of Vikings. Mum could never bring herself to wipe it off. Rurik studied fine arts at James Cook University, and his talent was nurtured by some great teachers. But most of all, it was nurtured by Dad, helping Rurik do all his written assignments and get everything in on time. When Mum asked Rurik one day whether Dad was being too involved in his degree, Rurik said, "Not at all, 2 degrees for the price of 1. While Rurik was honing his skills as a painter and sculptor, he inspired Dad to become an artist too, teaching Dad the basics of marble carving. Rurik later inspired me to start wood carving as well, gifting me his set of chisels and knives. Dad and Rurik had their first exhibition together at Umbrella Studios called Steel and Stone, Creatures of Myth and Magic in 2012. I remember them each working in opposite sides of the shed, but coming together often to show each other their progress and help each other along. Art isn't always a lucrative career, but Rurik was able to give up his day job and work as a professional artist for a year when working on the sculptures here at Jezzine. Later, Rurik would go on to have another joint exhibition with Dad, Lani, Uncle Rainer and I, called More Than Steel and Stone in 2016. Rurik then had a wonderful time working as a gallery assistant and travelling exhibitions manager for the Townsville City Galleries, right up until he met Erica and went on his adventures to Norway. Even though he was not able to create large sculptures once in Norway, he was still always making things, from the amazing decorations for his wedding to the bed that his daughter Alice sleeps in. Rurik had spent this last winter collecting branches from the woods near his house and whittling animals and ornaments for their Christmas tree. Rurik was such a talented artist, and we are so thankful that he has left us all with such wonderful artworks to remember him by.
It is one of the strange and poetic things of his life that his name, Rurik, is of Norse origin. Rurik was long interested in Norse mythology and stories, even many years before he met his love, Erica. And Scandinavia is where he ultimately landed in his own adventure of life. Rurik and Erica have an amazing love story. Rurik met Erica one night in Townsville when he went out to listen to Jason's band playing. Erica was travelling through Townsville on her own adventure, but their chance meeting changed the course of both of their lives. I remember Rurik coming home and telling us of the amazing girl he met. He was clearly smitten. That was the start of Rurik and Erica's adventure together. Rurik followed his heart. He left Townsville and joined Erica on her travels, going halfway around the world, through New Zealand, South America and North America, and landing in Norway, land of the Vikings, where they started their family and home together. They welcomed little Alice into the world in September 2019, and baby Adelaide is due to arrive in August of this year. Rurik loved his girl so much, and taking after her dad was a devoted father. It's around this time of day that Rurik would usually call us via FaceTime. Often he would be playing with Alice in the yard or making her breakfast before kindergarten. My last memory of Rurik is seeing him, Alice and Erica over FaceTime on Sunday before his passing. They were enjoying a lovely day at a little beach near their home. He seemed so happy with his family. It gives us comfort that Rurik's last days were so joyous.
When thinking of Rurik and his life, one word popped into our head to describe him. He was a maker. He had a knack for making things, for creating, for innovating solutions to problems, and he brought this talent to all areas of his life. He made world for his friends in D&D, he made artworks and sculptures which surround us today, and he was making a life in Norway with Erica and his girls. Rurik left so much tangible evidence of his time in this world, but most of all, he will live on through his children. Rurik lived such a full and wonderful life, even though it was cut short. Words cannot describe the shock, sorrow and loss we are all feeling with Rurik's passing. Rurik was a loving son, a caring brother, a loyal friend, and a devoted husband and father. He will be missed.
When I was asked to say a few words about Rurik, I was honoured to have the opportunity. So come into grips with the loss of a best friend. How do you encapsulate a person like Rurik in a few short words? I still don't know. Alongside being a brother, a son, a husband, and a father, he was also a friend. A friend from school, a friend from uni, from work, and from abroad. The amount of people that Rurik has connected with goes to show the kind of person he was. I met Rurik in high school, and we first properly got to know each other while sharing a Maths B class in Year 11. We sat beside each other, and with Maths unfortunately not being one of Rurik's many talents, I would most often be spending these classes teaching Rurik whatever the problems were for the day. Of course, Rurik, being the imaginative, creative brain he was, he one day pointed out 2 plants at the front of the room. See, one is flourishing and one is dying. That's our abilities in maths. He always had the spark to see something different in the world. Nearly a polar opposite to how I worked. He always found a story in everything he did, and added an element of magic to everyday life. He was so humble about his abilities, yet so talented. He would end up leaving that maths class and instead did Maths A, where he would exceed and took out the award of the school. It seemed his plant was still growing after all. His artwork is spectacular and was often a means of connecting our friendship roots here in Townsville. I was lucky enough to meet a good friend of ours, Angela's, this way, and many drinking excursions to the exchange were documented on Angela's camera. We are lucky to have these memories when so much fun was had and so many photos to look back on. Playing pool with Rurik and getting our asses whooped by Ken was a standard night at the exchange. Rurik would often volunteer to be the designated driver and drive all across town to make sure we all got home safe. Sometimes this would take hours. We were very grateful for this, and it was just the kind of guy Rurik was. Always putting in that extra effort for anyone he knew. Rurik loved baseball, and we had many sunny afternoons at Aikenvale Park throwing around a baseball together. I remember one day Rurik, Tom and I were down the park hitting the ball around where we spotted a giant bee's nest in the tree. Naturally, we had to throw baseballs at it till someone hit it, and then run for our lives. We came home 1 baseball short that day. Our friendship still remains strong over the years, even though we moved physically apart. Video games kept us close, and there were many late nights with Tom, Jay, Jeremy playing games. We had so many great memories playing games into the early hours of the morning. It was a big part of our lives, and I think Rurik particularly enjoyed it as it let his imagination run wild. He'd often send screenshots of the characters he was creating, and or telling me tales about the quest he just did in the game. D&D was also a large part of Rurik's life, and during this time I know Jason, Jay and Jacob and Tom could tell stories all day about those adventures they had. It makes me happy to know Rurik met Erica and was pushed out of his comfort zone, as he experienced so much in the past few years that would take most people a lifetime to achieve. I'll never forget that day he told us he was quitting work and driving across Queensland to go on a round-the-world holiday with a girl he had literally just met. I was like, Jesus Christ, Rurik, what are you doing? It was so unlike him, but I was cheering for him to make the most of this opportunity, which he did. We were all very jealous of this life he was living. I was lucky enough to be able to travel to Norway with Jason and Tom to go to Rurik and Erica's wedding in 2018. This trip was a highlight of my life, and it was the last time I got to see Rurik in person. It was so special to see him living a magical life in Oslo. With his Australian life now packed up, he wasn't able to game with us anymore, but he still shared stories of what games he was playing on his laptop, what the goings-on were at the hotel he was working at, and what books and music he was into. This was, of course, in between sending photos and videos of Alice playing in the snow or doing something cute like any adoring father would. We've all been robbed of our future time with Rurik, but I'm glad I got to be Rurik's friend. The news of Rurik passing is the biggest shock of my life, and it just makes you realise how precious and fortunate every day of this earth is. I know there are a million more stories to tell, and I hope we can keep sharing them to keep these memories alive. The world needs more Ruriks and not less, and I hope we can all carry a little part of his spirit on in our lives. Rest in peace, Rurik.
Hi, we're the aforementioned the Slippery Mess. We were playing with Rurik. We've known him since high school. Jay's known Rurik since primary school, and he was a big part of all our lives. As it's been mentioned, he's incredibly creative and kind. And I think with our group in particular, we've all gone into artistic careers as well. And I think we couldn't ask for a better friend. Yeah, try it. So, this is the first song that we ever learned together. So. Maybe in another life I could find you there, blown away before your time. I can deal, so unfair, and it feels like heaven so far away. And it feels like the world is so cold now that you've gone away. Leaving flowers on your grave to show that I still care. But black roses and Hail Marys can't bring back what's taken from me. I've reached to the sky and called out your name. And if I could trade, I would. And it feels like heaven so far away. And it stings, yeah, it stings now. The world is so cold now that you've gone away. I've reached to the sky and called out your name. And if I could trade, I would. And it feels like heaven so far away. And it Feels like the world has grown cold now that you've gone away.
Thank you, Jason and Jay and Ken. Those three boys were three of the boys who were in the band with Rurik, or Rurik was in their band. They convinced him to actually learn the drums. He couldn't play the drums, but that's the kind of guy he was. He decided, well, okay, my friends want me to be able to play the drums for them. They need a drummer, so I'll learn and I'll do it. And that song is so meaningful to us. So thank you for singing that, because that was the very first song that the band actually learned to play, and in a very different way in our house. Not so quietly, but, you know. So thank you. Before we bring this memorial for Rurik to a close, we, his family, Bob and I and Lani and Ruffy and all our extended family, wish to thank all our friends and extended family members who provided help and support to arrange this ceremony. We especially thank you for the gift of your voices. Our dear friend Alice Beams, who sang the lament at the beginning, Jason and Ken and Jay and Michael Nye. And lastly, Dan Foster, who will join us at the end. We thank all present here with us today for your presence, for your admiration of Rurik and the legacy of love he has left us, and for helping us to reach out in sympathy to his wife Erica, daughters Alice and Adelaide, and other family in Norway and the USA. We will now release 3 butterflies in the names of Erica, Alice and Adelaide to symbolically carry our message of love and care beyond the sea to them. Because Alice and Adelaide may one day, when old enough, watch the recording of this ceremony, we wish to send our hearts to you across time and space. Rurik's love for you will endure in us all, and in you, Alice and Adelaide. Your papa's big family on your granny's side, here in Australia, and on your grandfather's side in America. Your many, many aunties, uncles, and cousins are here for you. Are they gone? I didn't see them. We encourage you now to take a flower from the basket provided, and you may choose to walk past Rurik's sculptures if you haven't already, or just throw the flowers into the sea and send them floating towards Norway on your way home. We wish you all safe travels home, and for all of you, safe travels through your precious journey of life. Thank you.
Oh, all the money, the dear I've spent it in good company. all the harm that e'er I did. Alas, it was to none but thee. And all I've done, for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. If I had money enough to spend, leisure time to sit a while, there is a fair maid in this town, surely doth my heart beguile. Her rosy cheeks and ruby lips, I own she has my heart enthralled. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. All the comrades that e'er I had, they're sorry for my going away. And all the sweethearts that e'er I kissed would wish me one more day to stay. But since it falls onto my lot that I should rise and you should not, fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. Good night and joy be with you all.
Okay, that's it. You might have to put your coat on.